When, at dawn on June 6, 1944, American Rangers, under a hail of machine gun fire, climbed the steep 30-meter cliffs of Cape Pointe du Oak, using rope ladders and climbing equipment under the incessant shelling of the German defenders, their commander, Lieutenant Colonel James Earl Rudder, personally led this insane assault, which military historians would later call one of the most daring and desperate operations of Day D. Of the 225 Rangers who launched the assault, only 90 remained in service by the end of the second day, but they completed an impossible mission that Dwight Eisenhower himself considered crucial to the success of the entire Operation Overlord. This man did not just command from the safety of the rear, he was the first to climb the cliffs with his men, showing an example of courage that inspired soldiers to continue fighting even when it seemed that there was no chance of survival at all. James Earl Rudder was born on March 21, 1910, in the small Texas town of Eden, into a family of simple farmers. His childhood was spent working on the family farm, where he learned early on to appreciate perseverance, discipline, and the importance of doing any job to the end, no matter how hard it was. These qualities, instilled by the harsh farming life of Texas, will become the foundation of its future military character. After graduating from high school in 1928, Rudder enrolled at Texas Agricultural and Mechanical College, known as Texas A&M, which was famous for its military reserve officer training program. In college, he not only received a degree in industrial education, but also completed an officer training course, where for the first time he felt a call to military service and leadership. After graduating from college in 1932, at the height of the Great Depression, Rudder returned to his native Eden, where he began working as a teacher and football coach at a local high school. Despite his humble position as a school teacher, he demonstrated outstanding organizational skills and the ability to inspire young people to achieve the goals. His football team became the state champion, which was an event of great importance in a small Texas town. He married Margaret Williamson, who became his faithful companion for life and bore him 5 children. It seemed that Rudder's life would be a quiet career as a teacher in rural Texas, but world events decided otherwise. When the United States entered World War II in 1941 after the attack on Pearl Harbor, 31-year-old Rudder, who held the rank of reserve officer, was immediately called up for active military service. His organizational skills, physical fitness, and experience working with young people quickly attracted the attention of the command. In 1943, he was appointed commander of the 2nd Ranger Battalion, an elite unit that was preparing for the most dangerous and complex operations of the upcoming invasion of Europe. The Rangers were the American response to the British Commandos, fighters specially trained to conduct assault operations in the most adverse conditions. Rudder personally participated in the grueling training of his men, never demanding from them what he could not do himself. Preparations for Operation Overlord were in full swing, and the Allied command was faced with a serious problem. At the top of Pointe du Oak Point, located between Omaha and Utah beaches, the Germans placed a battery of 6 powerful French-made 155mm guns that could shell both landing beaches, threatening the entire operation. With a range of over 20 kilometers, these cannons could turn the Allied landings into a bloodbath. The cliffs of the Cape, about 30 meters high, were almost sheer, and the Germans considered them an insurmountable natural defense, placing minefields, barbed wire and machine gun nests on top. Any attempt at an assault seemed suicidal, but the guns had to be destroyed before the main landing began. The command chose the 2nd and 5th Ranger Battalions under the overall leadership of Lieutenant Colonel Rudder for this almost impossible mission. The plan was so risky that Eisenhower himself, the supreme commander of the Allied forces, personally met with Rudder, trying to assess the chances of success. Rudder confidently stated that his people would cope, although he was well aware of the scale of the upcoming losses. The Rangers trained to storm the cliffs on the coast of England using specially designed equipment, rope ladders, shock grapples with rocket launchers, fire ladders mounted on landing boats by the British London Fire Brigades. Every element of the operation was practiced to the point of automatism, but everyone understood that the real battle would be a completely different test. On June 6, 1944, on D-Day, landing boats with Rangers headed for Cape Pointe du Oak. From the very beginning, everything did not go according to plan. A strong current carried the boats away from their intended landing point, and precious 40 minutes were lost on course adjustments. This meant that the Germans had received a warning about the landing and could prepare for defense. When the boats finally approached the shore under the rocks, they were met by heavy fire from machine guns and rifles. German soldiers on top of the cliffs threw down hand grenades and fired at the Rangers who were trying to secure the ropes and start climbing. Many soldiers were killed before they could even get off the boats. Some rope rocket launchers did not work because the ropes got soaked in seawater and became too heavy. Rudder was one of the first to set foot on the shore and begin climbing the cliffs. Under a hail of bullets and grenade fragments, he climbed up, setting an example to his people. The Rangers clung to tiny ledges in the rock, pulled themselves up by ropes, and helped their wounded comrades. The Germans tried to cut the ropes with knives and axes, but the Allied naval ships fired the guns at the top of the cliffs, forcing the defenders to hide. The British destroyer Satterley and the American destroyer Talbot came so close to shore, risking running aground, that they were able to fire at German positions directly over the heads of the attacking Rangers. This fire support provided the precious minutes needed to get the first groups to the top. After reaching the top edge of the cliffs after a grueling climb, the Rangers discovered a lunar landscape of bombardment craters, destroyed bunkers and trenches. Fierce hand-to-hand battles ensued with the German defenders, who used every bunker and crater as a stronghold. Rudder personally coordinated the actions of small groups of Rangers who cleared the fortifications from the enemy. But when they reached the positions of the gun battery, a shock awaited them. The huge guns turned out to be wooden models. The Germans, fearing preliminary Allied bombing, moved the real guns to a shelter deep in the peninsula. This could mean the failure of the entire mission, because the real guns were still threatening to land on the beaches. Rudder immediately sent scouting patrols deep into the territory to search for the real guns. Two Rangers, Sergeants Leonard Lamal and Jack Cohen, found all 6 guns camouflaged in gardens about 1.5 kilometers from the coast, ready to open fire on Omaha Beach. There were no gun crews, they probably went to help other units. Using thermite grenades, the Rangers disabled the guidance mechanisms of all 6 guns, completing the main objective of the mission. It was a critical moment in the entire operation, although few people knew about this feat at the time. If these guns had opened fire on Omaha Beach, where the landing had already turned into a bloodbath, Allied losses could have been catastrophic. But the Rangers' trials were just beginning. The promised reinforcements did not arrive because the command on the beaches, having not received a signal from Rudder in time due to radio problems, decided that the mission had failed and sent reserve Ranger battalions to storm Omaha Beach. Less than 100 of Rudder's Rangers were isolated on the captured Cape, surrounded by superior German forces, who launched fierce counterattacks, trying to throw the Americans back into the sea. The next 2 days turned into a desperate defense of the perimeter, where every shell crater became a position, every meter of ground was contested in fierce battles. Ammunition was running out, medical supplies were depleted, and there were more and more wounded, but Rudder refused to leave the position. The lieutenant colonel himself was wounded twice these days, but continued to command the defense, crawling from one position to another, encouraging people, distributing the last rounds. He set up a medical center in one of the captured German bunkers, where a captured German military doctor treated the wounded on both sides under the protection of Red Cross signs. The Rangers fought off numerous attacks by the German infantry, sometimes engaging in hand-to-hand combat when they ran out of bullets. They used captured German weapons and ammunition, and took them off the dead opponents. At night, German snipers and patrols infiltrated through the positions, and in the dark, a deadly game of hide-and-seek was played between exhausted defenders and determined attackers. On June 8, the 3rd day after the landing, when only about 90 of the original 225 Rangers remained in the ranks, capable of holding weapons, the advanced units of the American troops finally broke through to Pointe du Oak, breaking through from Omaha Beach. Rudder and his men held the ground, completing the mission completely, even though the cost was terrifying. When relief arrived, even the battle-hardened infantrymen were shocked by the sight of the exhausted, bloodied, but unconquered Rangers, many of whom were barely able to stand from exhaustion and wounds. Rudder himself was immediately evacuated for medical treatment, and his leadership and personal example became a legend among the Allied forces. For his heroism and outstanding command, Lieutenant Colonel Rudder was awarded the Distinguished Service Order with an oak leaf, the second most important U.S. military order after the Medal of Honor. He was quickly promoted to colonel, and after recovering from his wounds, he returned to command the Rangers, continuing to participate in combat operations in France and Germany. His battalions participated in the breakthrough of the Siegfried Line fortifications, in operations in the Hürtgen forest, and in repelling the German counteroffensive in the Ardennes. By the end of the war, he commanded an entire division, and his reputation as a fearless commander, always standing by his men in the most dangerous situations, only strengthened. After the end of World War II, Rudder returned to Texas, where a new chapter of his life awaited him, as remarkable as his military career. He became a teacher at his alma mater, Texas Agricultural and Mechanical College, and then quickly rose through the administrative ranks. In 1959, he was appointed president of Texas A&M, becoming the 16th president of this prestigious educational institution. Under his leadership, the college underwent a transformation. From a small military college, it turned into a large research university. New faculties were opened, the research base was expanded, and student enrollment increased significantly. Rudder fought for the racial integration of the university, admitting the first African American students in 1963, despite the resistance of conservative forces in Texas. His administrative style reflected his military experience. He was decisive, demanding, but fair, always ready to listen to the opinions of others, but was not afraid to make unpopular decisions if he considered them right. He personally knew many of the students by name, and often met with them informally, recalling with his approach the days when he was a schoolteacher in a small Texas town. Teachers and students deeply respected him not only for his military services, but also for his sincere concern for the development of the university and the well-being of its students. Under him, Texas A&M became one of the leading universities in the southern United States, as a direct result of his energy, vision, and administrative talent. James Earl Rudder died on March 23, 1970 of a heart attack at the age of 60, having served as president of Texas A&M until his death. His funeral was a national event, attended by high-ranking military and political figures, thousands of former students and soldiers who served under his command. Buildings at Texas A&M, a U.S. Navy ship, and streets in various Texas cities bear his name. But the most important monument to his legacy remains the principles of leadership that he demonstrated throughout his life, a personal example, a willingness to share dangers and difficulties with those he commands, an unwavering determination to achieve goals, and caring for people under your leadership. These qualities, manifested with particular force during those critical days in June 1944 on the cliffs of Pointe du Oak, defined the character of this outstanding man and his place in American history as one of the greatest leaders of his generation.